Welcome to the world of tomorrow. Climb aboard. You are about to take a journey out of this world into the world of the future. Forget the world around you. Forget the people around you. You are entering Futurama, alone with your own thoughts.
It's movie night. We're gonna watch some old films. Vintage movies. Vintage movie night. We're gonna watch some old films. Vintage movies. Vintage movies. Vintage movie night. We're gonna watch some old films. Vintage movie night. Vintage movie night. Vintage movie night.
Hello and welcome to the future. This is Vintage Movie Night. I am Richard Hall. Thank you for joining us virtually. Unfortunately, we cannot gather in the facility of Takoma Park, the municipal center, which is where we prefer to do film screenings before a live audience, but we have not done that since February, and you know why, because of the virus. So I am recording this in front of my green wall in my living room, just to be honest about it. So I am superimposing myself in front of an audience on a stage, just to give you the feeling of being inside an auditorium, even though that is currently, and still many months later, impossible. I have chosen about 9 films that represent what Americans, and particularly corporate America, thought about the future from the 1930s until the late 1960s. One of the things that you'll find most amusing, perhaps, is that in many of these films, perhaps in a majority of the films, kitchens figure prominently. Now, perhaps that's because of the films I've chosen, but for some reason, when people think about the future, they frequently think about kitchens and how they'll be better and work will be easier in the future. Lately, since the coronavirus started, when I present these vintage movie nights, I have been adopting a different persona. This time I tried to make myself look like the future, whatever that is. It's rather silly and ridiculous the way I look, of course, but many of these films, in the way they look at the future, are also silly and ridiculous, so I believe that my outfit is appropriate in that sense. Our first selection is 1999 AD. From 1967, I've chosen 13 minutes of a half-hour Philco Ford film that is featuring the House of Tomorrow. In this House of Tomorrow, a central computer controls everything. There's distance learning, a self-contained fuel cell, and of course an extremely advanced modern kitchen that only takes minutes to prepare food which has been selected by the computer to meet the nutritional needs of each person living in the house. This film comes from the Library of Congress. It's part of their National Film Preservation Foundation's online screening room, and it's a beautiful restoration of a vivid color film that has a very optimistic view of what houses might look like in the year 1999, or so they thought in 1967.
What year is it now? I forgot.
Here, I'll show you.
1999 AD. More than a generation away, and yet dreams travel faster than light. And even now, scientists and planners are shaping the lives of our children who will live in the 21st century. How will they live? Perhaps in a honeycombed structure like this, the oldest, strongest natural shape known. Hexagon modules that grow with a family's size and interests. Michael Shaw, 45, husband, father, is an astrophysicist. Several days each week, he commutes to a distant laboratory where he's engaged in the Mars 1 project, the colonization of the first planet. His minor in the some 10 years he attended a Midwestern university was botany. It is one of his many continuing hobbies. He is engrossed on this sunny morning in the study of the cellular structure of a new exotic fruit tree. Hopefully, his experiments will produce a giant peach with a thick protective skin much like that of a tangerine. This is one of the many 21st century devices or appliances that are part of the everyday life of the Shaw family. This workbench with its electronic screen enables Michael to call up photographic sections of the two parent fruit trees from which he began his experiments 3 years ago. At that time, he stored the two photographic images in the central home computer, which is secretary, librarian, banker, teacher, medical technician, bridge partner, and all-around servant in this house of tomorrow. All pertinent information about this family, its records, its tastes, and reference material, is stored in these memory banks, available instantly to every member of the family. Master James Shaw, 8 years old, student, attends formal school 2 mornings a week. Much of his education, however, is carried on in a kind of education center within the home.
And so, an era that began 500 years earlier with Copernicus and Galileo ends as the first astronaut takes his first halting steps onto the shores of the moon and begins a new age of man.
His assignments are programmed into the home computer and fed into teaching machines, which allow him to progress as rapidly as his awakening mind can absorb the audio-visual lessons.
This is Lecture 102. Galileo's life work, and indeed his personal character, can perhaps be exemplified by describing one of his early experiments. According to Aristotle, a body that falls possesses weight. Those that do not fall have no weight. Since air does not fall, it has no weight. Galileo decided to examine this conclusion in his own fashion.
Karen Ann Shaw, 43, wife, mother, part-time homemaker.
Hey, Mom, I'm hungry.
Yeah, Yeah, me too. How about lunch?
How about 2 minutes?
Okay, 2 minutes and counting. 120, 119.
All right, but you better not show up with a dirty face.
115. 113. 112.
Mike, how about chicken salad? Cheese omelet?
Cheeseburger, some French fries, and a nice cold bottle of beer.
I'll see. Mike, cold roast beef?
Okay, be right there.
75, 74, 73. $39, $38, $37, $36.
Why is it that even in the future, it's only women who do the cooking? Even when they say it only takes a couple of minutes, still it's just the women doing the cooking.
20, 19, 18, 17, 16.
2, 1.
And luncheon is served.
Split-second lunches, color-keyed disposable dishes, all part of the instant society of tomorrow. A society rich in leisure and taken for granted comforts. At the turn of the next century, most food will be stored frozen in individual portions. The computer will keep a running inventory on all foodstuffs and suggest daily menus based on the nutritional needs of the family. When the meal has been selected, the various portions are fed automatically into the microwave oven for a few seconds of thawing or warming. The house of 1999 will be virtually maintenance-free. A central atmospheric system will maintain constant year-around temperatures and control humidity, bacteria, pollen, and dust. Clothing of the non-disposable variety will be stored in cleaning closets, where a chemical vapor atmosphere and an ultrasonic vibrator will remove dirt particles. Fingertip shopping will be one of the many homemakers' conveniences. This video console will be channeled into the store of her choice. There, a camera will scan a display of wares, which she will select by push button. Another part of this console is a household monitor screen, which maintains a watch on critical areas in the house, swimming pool, or yard. What the wife selects on her console will be paid for by the husband at his counterpart console. All bills and transactions will be carried out electronically. A central bank computer will debit the family's account the amount of purchases and credit the department store, for example, informing the family's home computer at the same time. Father, at the touch of a button, receives an instantaneous printed copy of his budget, the amount of taxes he owes, the payments left on the car, and so forth. All documents and household records are available on the video screen for immediate reference. Also at his disposal is an electronic correspondence machine, or home post office, which allows for instant written communication between individuals anywhere in the world. To maintain these and hundreds of complex electronic circuits, a monitor checks all circuits every few seconds, inserts a backup circuit if and when trouble develops, and alerts the communal service agency for replacement. The Home Energy Center, with its fuel cell, furnishes power, provides absolutely pure water, burns waste, and heats or cools the rooms. Too computerized? Too cold? The world of tomorrow will be as cold as sunlight tuned through photochromic windows. It will be as wide as the ocean, which will provide not only recreation for the adventurous, but an increasing variety of hydra-cultured exotic fresh foodstuffs. And tomorrow will be as happy as music.
Hey, Chopin, what's up?
Oh, playing a song.
Ah, what's it called?
I forgot.
You faker. How about playing the song we learned yesterday?
Okay.
Let's augment this a bit, shall we?
Okay.
Turn it off, please. Turn it off, please. This program of films I've chosen is about 2 hours long, and some of the films are only partial. In the description of the program, if you want to watch the entire films, you'll find links to do so. These films are all in the public domain, and majority of these films come from the Library of Congress, and they have been preserved because they were selected as part of the National Film Preservation Foundation's work. Now we're going to go back in time from 1967 back to 1937, Frontiers of the Future. This is a 10-minute film hosted, it's called an essay by Lowell Thomas, who was a very popular figure at the time in radio and films, television. It was made to improve the image of industry during the Great Depression. And apparently, according to the source of this film, Prelinger Archives, this is where this film comes from. You can browse their thousands of films online at the Internet Archive. The film was sold in a kit to corporations that came along with a projector, and so in 1937, this was a film that you could see looking to the future in optimism, trying to make Americans feel better at a very dark time when the economy was not doing well. And there were many strikes. Labor was not happy. There were breadlines. So the industry groups got together and made this film as a sort of cheerleading for the country.
Hello, everybody. This is Lowell Thomas, and I intend to ask one or two questions, which you too have probably asked, and then I intend to answer them. America for 300 years has been the land of promise for the rest of the world, the land of new frontiers, new opportunities for all. Today, the job of building this nation geographically is completed. There are no new frontiers within our borders. So, here are my questions, and yours. To what new horizons can we look now? Where are tomorrow's opportunities? What's ahead in America for you, for your children? It is not a difficult assignment to answer these questions. The frontiers of the future are not on any map. They are in the minds of men and in the test tubes and laboratories of the great industries we have built up here in America. But now, what's ahead of us? Many of us have had our doubts. There are those who say today that opportunities have ceased to exist. Things are finished. We have everything and not enough. There can be no more progress. Almost 100 years ago, in the old patent office in Washington, the Commissioner of Patents was just as pessimistic as anyone you have ever heard.
The advancement of our arts from year to year taxes our credulity and seems to presage the arrival of that period when human improvements must end.
In other words, in 1844, the commissioner was about ready to shut up the patent office and go home, believing that everything had been invented, that industrial progress in America had already come to an end. He didn't know that within 2 years he would be signing a patent on a method of vulcanizing rubber from which there was destined to spring up hundreds of new industries and jobs by the thousands that were made possible through this one idea. No, the pessimists of that day never dreamed of the marvels that would soon follow their predictions. They overlooked one all-important fact that we should know so well. That is, as long as there is a problem to be solved or a desire to be met, American ingenuity will not rest. Today, industry in this country is spending over $200 million a year to improve old products and develop new products, which mean new industries, new jobs. They are working constantly to solve problems and find ways to give us what we want, better things for less money. In any one of thousands of test tubes of today, there may be 1 million job opportunities for tomorrow. 15 years after Commissioner Ellsworth's gloomy predictions, Edwin Drake surprised skeptics by pumping petroleum out of the hills of Pennsylvania. For years, the oilmen cursed gasoline. It was a troublesome byproduct, and they dumped millions of gallons of it into the rivers and streams. Then, science discovered that gasoline was liquid horsepower. You know what has happened since. Oil and gasoline we demand today furnishes employment to millions of people, and these are only two products obtained from crude petroleum, which was industrially worthless until American technicians changed a barrel of oil into an Aladdin's lamp, which can produce an endless variety of valuable products. Look at just a few things created by scientific research in laboratories operated by the oil companies of America, byproducts of petroleum from which have sprung up entirely new industries. Face cream for the ladies, special tasteless waxes for certain kinds of candies, wax for sealing letters, soap, fertilizers for the farmers, coke, ink, streets and highways. And on this frontier, opportunities have hardly been touched. But let's get out of the oil business and find out what's going on in other fields. I've been around a lot and talked with some of these research men, and they won't make predictions because they deal only in facts. But they're on their way to new ideas, new things that will astonish us when they are announced. For instance, one research man said recently,
There is one research that has been going on for a long time to find out why we can see through glass. You say it's transparent, but that's merely an adjective, not a reason. Engineers think they know what friction is, but actually they can't yet tell you what it is, any more than they can tell you what electricity is. In one big laboratory, they're trying to find out what makes grass green, and the answer to that question may keep us industrially busy for years. With automobile engines, we've just really started. The indication is that someday they will give us 300 miles to the gallon. And as for electric lights, well, so many improvements will come that'll make today's lighting look like the tallow candle age.
We have discovered how to manufacture rubber from coal, limestone, salt, and water. From a product of cotton, we are spinning a filament finer than that of the silkworm. Out of air, water, and coal, we produce a fertilizer for which Americans formerly had to travel thousands of miles. In coal, we have found the colors of the rainbow and the perfumes of nature's sweetest flowers. Chemistry is creating new and more comfortable homes, giving you finer and yet vastly cheaper motor cars, better clothes, purer food, and sounder health.
And what these laboratories promise in the way of a market for the farmer staggers the imagination. Today, just one great chemical company is the farmer's biggest single customer. It buys annually 16,500,000 pounds of cotton, the yield from 100,000 acres. 700,000 pounds of cottonseed oil, 36 million pounds of cotton linters, 36 million bushels of corn, 38 of wood pulp, 40 million gallons of molasses, 6,500,000 pounds of turpentine and rosin, and 23 million pounds of vegetable oils. These purchases in the aggregate represent the yield of over 4 million acres of farmlands, which would more than cover the whole state of New Jersey. And the chemical age is just dawning. Already, industry is making airplane propellers with sour milk as an ingredient, roads from cotton, and artificial leather from the same material. The time may come when the American farmer will grow a crop of automobile engines or rocking chairs. These few things, my friends, are only a hint of what American industry holds in the future. And remember, every time one of these infant industries clicks with the public, gives you what you want, presto, a new industry is created with new jobs and new payrolls. Here are just a few lusty infants. Unbreakable optical lenses for your glasses, television, gasoline from sea sand, rubies from peach pits, sponges from wood and cotton, artificial wool from cheese, but not with the holes, vinegar from coke and limestone, waste gases from the factory converted into antifreeze for your car. Sheep have been raised on chemicals from the laboratory. Plants grown without soil. From cotton, sour milk, formaldehyde, and carbolic acid all scrambled together in the laboratory come noiseless gears, costume jewelry, fountain pens, billiard balls, telephone parts, and many other plastics of beauty and utility. So maybe the moon is made of green cheese, and even if it isn't, the explorers of the research laboratories could probably find a way to do it. One thing is certain. It is these research activities sponsored by American industry that have brought us this far and will continue to create further progress for us. And the industrial scientists and engineers are the pioneers of present-day America, the creators of progress, of new industries and new jobs. Train your sights on the laboratories of American industry to see what's ahead. It's a bewildering future, all right, not because there are no new frontiers, but because there are so many. So, on with progress.
Now we move ahead just 2 years to 1939. And this is an hour-long film, but I've selected 24 minutes of it. It's called The Middleton Family at the New York World's Fair, the 1939 New York World's Fair. The film was made by Westinghouse, and it was shot on location in their exhibit at the fair. You can, again, watch this entire film online at the National Film Preservation Foundation's online screening room. The plot of this story is a love triangle between a young Westinghouse enthusiast who works at the fair for Westinghouse and a hometown girl who's in New York City going to art school. And the third person in the triangle is a Marxist art teacher who is designed to be very creepy, very skeptical of Westinghouse technology, thinking that it's destroying the working man. And so they lay out this character, and can you imagine who gets the girl?
Vivarium to the playground of science.
Hiya, Jim, how's the boy?
Hello, Bud! The same old Bud. That's a new one, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it a beaut? Hello, Jim.
Hello, Mrs. Harrison. How are you, Mrs. Middleton?
Oh, Jim, it's so good to see you. You're looking fine.
It's good to see you again. Hello, Mr. Middleton. How are you?
Hello there, Jim. You're certainly a sight for sore eyes.
It's sure grand to see somebody from the old hometown. When'd you get in?
Just last night. Your father and mother saw us off. They said if we didn't look you up the first thing, they'd never speak to us again.
Say, Jim, just what do you do around here? Are you a boss or something?
Well, not exactly, but I'm sort of backstop for the guys. When they can't answer a question, I take a crack at it. If I don't know it, I look it up, which is often.
Gee, I didn't know you were that smart.
I'm not, Bud. But you see, before the fair opened, we took a special course of instruction to prepare us for the questions the company thought might be asked.
Well, do they stick you very often?
And how? Why, just this morning, a lady asked me how long it would take to read the microfile in the time capsule.
We've been reading a lot about the time capsule. Could we take a look at it?
Why, sure. We can get to it this way.
Time capsule of cupuli, deposited on the site of the New York World's Fair on September 23rd, 1938, by the Westinghouse Electric and Manufacturing Company. If anyone should come upon this capsule before the year AD 6939, let him not wantonly disturb it, for to do so would be to deprive the people of that era of the legacy here left them. Cherish it, therefore, in a safe place.
5,000 years from now, the peoples of the future will look back on us as we look back on the early Egyptians and Babylonians. The time capsule down there is actually a message from our time to theirs. Those who open and study it will know more about us than any man living today.
But Jim, how in the world do you know it'll last so long?
Because the copper tools of the ancients have come down to us from even farther back. The capsule is made of a still better copper alloy called cupuli. It's hard as steel and equal to pure copper in resistance to corrosion.
Well, what I'm wondering is how anybody will know how to find it in the year, what was it, 69, 39?
How to find it, what's in it. In fact, everything about it was printed in a book of record of the time capsule. It's on permanent paper and it's been distributed throughout the world. To libraries, museums, lamaseries, monasteries, temples, every safe place imaginable.
Well, who picked the stuff that was to go in it, Jim?
A committee, aided by authorities in every field of science and the arts. It's a complete record of our civilization.
Is this exactly like the capsule?
Yes, and it's cut away so you can see how it's packed. These side cases show you the variety of things in it.
Look, there's a woman's hand.
The ladies had to reveal a lot about us to future scientists.
They sure will. They'll think we're nuts.
Are these little reels the microfile?
Yes. It's hard to believe, but on these small reels of film are reproduced all these books, papers, and magazines. It's a record of 10 million words and 1,000 pictures.
Well, how will they read them?
A small microscope is included. But there are also instructions how to make a large reading machine. Also, how to make a motion picture projector for the 3 special newsreels.
I suppose cloth and things like that are in it, too.
Everything from samples of fabrics to a dozen different kinds of common seeds.
I bet a nickel I know something that isn't in it. Mickey Mouse.
You'd lose, Bud. Mickey Mouse, Dick Tracy, Barney Google, they're all there. Even toys and money. Why, the list of contents alone takes up 17 pages of fine print.
Boy, they weren't fooling when they made that capsule, were they?
It's the brains of the world done up in a small package. And it's the most permanent exhibit at the fair. It'll still be here when the rest of this place is nothing but dust.
That's remarkable. Have you got time to show some of the other sites, Jim?
All you can use.
Isn't it wonderful, Nick?
Beautiful.
I guess we're a little early. What do you want to do?
Anything but inspect this temple of capitalism.
Oh, Nick.
Look at them. Their eyes popping out of their heads, drooling over the very things that are taking away their jobs.
Now, Nick, don't get all excited. My family think that America is a pretty swell place, and I don't want you to disillusion them.
I know. I'm here to be exhibited. Mute but beautiful.
Don't say that, please. I want them to like you, to know you as I do.
Did you tell them we're in love? That I want to marry you? That I've asked you 100 times?
Of course I haven't, Nick. It isn't like telling them that I've got a new hat. I have to do it gradually, the right time and the right place.
But why all this strategy? We don't have to maneuver like a battery of tanks. We're not at war with your parents. This is between you and me.
It isn't as simple as all that, Nick.
Listen to me, Babs. If there's one thing in our lives that doesn't concern other people, it's our marriage. We can slip away after lunch, and by dinner time, you can be Mrs. Meckerl.
Not so fast, Nick. Give me a chance to find out whether I really love you or not. Then if I do, all right. I want my family's blessings beforehand, not when they can't help themselves.
Afraid of being cut off with the proverbial shilling, darling?
No. Money doesn't count where love is concerned.
No, of course not.
Hitting those dishes with everything she has. She's consistently diving in the bottom of the dark and greasy water to search for knives and forks. Dishwater splashing around terrific rate all over Mrs. Drudge. That rubber apron isn't much help now. She's splashing so hard it's getting all over me, and it's a little dangerous to attempt to give a blow-by-blow account of what's going on in that dishpan. There's a lot of action over here. She's mopping up with a towel to get the water some of the dishes she dried a few minutes ago. That water in the pan is an awful messy-looking sight, folks. I wish you could see it. Incidentally, in the entire operation, the dishwasher would use a total of only 15 quarts of water, which is a lot less than Mrs. Drudge's used. And now over here,
Mrs. Drudge washes dishes just like Tom.
Nonsense. Takes him an hour to wash a plate. Then he usually drops it.
I mean, he gets more water on the floor than on the dishes. That's why I never let him help me anymore.
Now I know he's smarter than you are.
Very fast, Mrs. Drudge, come on, please. Hurry, Mrs. Drudge, before it's too late. That water's coming out very fast. Too late. There's the last drop of water, folks. The contest is over in exactly 7 minutes and 58 seconds. In that time, Mrs. Modern has washed 50 dishes and 40 pieces of silverware.
Ladies and gentlemen, how many of you have a dishwasher that can wash 50 dishes in 7 minutes?
Well, it's all over, Mrs. Drudge. You may as well rest now. As I said before, ladies and gentlemen, this contest is going to be scored on 3 counts. First, the time it takes to do the dishes. Unquestionably, Mrs. Modern wins on that score. Second, the cleanliness of the dishes. They are clean, they are dry and sparkling. They'll do honor to any woman's table, so Mrs. Modern wins point number 2. Her dishes are certainly cleaner. And now, point number 3, the condition of the contestants. Mrs. Modern looks as fresh and neat as when she stepped into the ring, while Mrs. Drudge, well, I'll have to leave that to you. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the winner, Mrs. Modern.
I'm tired just from what that announcer said. Did you hear him, Mother? In 15 years, a woman washes, dries, and stacks a pile of dishes 9 times higher than the Empire State Building. Imagine it.
Well, that didn't impress me half as much as seeing Mrs. Modern read a paper while her dishes were being washed. She'll look young when she's 100.
Hi, Babs. Shake hands with an old pal of yours.
Why, Jim.
Babs,
How are you? It's nice to see you again.
you're looking well, as usual.
Oh, this is Mr. Makaroff, my art teacher. Nick, this is Jim Treadway, one of the hometown boys.
We're glad to know you, Mr. Makaroff.
How are you?
And this is my little brother, Bud.
Hi, Mr. Makaroff.
Hello.
Oh, say, Babs, we're on our way to the Hall of Power. Why don't you tag along and learn something? Well, there's plenty of time before we meet the folks.
I don't know, it might be fun. What do you think, Nick?
All right, but don't expect me to be amused. There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Boy, look at that machine-make ribbon. 7 at a time. Ain't it a honey?
You'd be nearer right if you called it a Frankenstein's monster.
No, that's in the movies.
Why do you call it that, Nick?
Machines like this destroy jobs. Think of the number of people who'd be working if we didn't have these power looms.
Yes. I guess every woman in America would be weaving. And every home would be a sweatshop producing clothes for the family. Like they were before we had power looms.
I don't think I'd like that very much.
I don't think you'd like homespun clothes either. Grandma tells me they didn't have much style, but they cost so much in hard labor you wore them till they fell apart.
That's what the Cossacks do in Russia. Every couple of years they peel off their duds like sticking plaster.
It might interest you to know that only the peasants do that.
Not here they don't. We ain't got any.
Bud, you didn't answer Nick's question. I mean about looms like this keeping people out of work.
A fellow with a red beard asked me the same thing the other day. He waited while I looked it up. And there were 4 textile mills in America in 1800. They employed a few hundred workers and used water power. Today, with electric and other power, around 1 million persons are employed in the textile industry. And clothes are so cheap, no one has to make his own. That, I think, answers your question.
What's over here, Jim? What is it, Jim? Look at that thing go around.
It's a manipulator table, used in a steel blooming mill. You can control the billet with these switches.
Watch out, it's going off. Oh.
The photoelectric equipment keeps it on the table.
I suppose you're going to tell us machines like this benefit labor.
And how? Not many years ago, steel making was a dangerous occupation. Now, the safest place a steel man can be is in the mill. It's safer than his home.
That's right, capitalistic propaganda.
Oh, you're kidding, Jim.
I'm stating a fact. I know one steel plant that employs 10,000 men. While 15 of them lost their lives at home and other places, not one was lost in the steelworks.
That's hard to believe.
Well, there's the answer right there. Electrical control. Instead of swinging a sledgehammer all day and risking his neck, the steel man sits where Bud is and does his work with the master switches.
Well, if one man can do all that with a machine, then I agree with Nick. It can't help but lessen jobs.
Here's why they don't, Babs. It's very simple. Machine production makes better and cheaper products. As a result, more people want and can buy them. That in turn creates a demand for more labor.
That's just one of those so-called economic laws that doesn't work in practice.
It works in steel, printing, textiles, and automobiles, and they're the most mechanized industries in the country.
Yes.
Let's go see what's over here, Nick.
All right. Yeah, you can operate that yourself, Bud.
Oh, thanks.
Step on the dead man's pedal here, or keep it down always with the runner. Step. That's your brake. This is your gong.
Does your company make any really large equipment, Mr. Treadway?
Yes, they do. Some so big it has to be shipped piece by piece. For example, the electric furnace we made for a large motor company is 330 feet long.
I thought so. Those are the kind of machines that displace men.
Mass market industries don't modernize to save jobs, Mr. Makarov. Their aim is to increase production. That's how employment is created. The only way, in fact.
General statements don't mean much to me, Mr. Treadway.
All right, facts then. I know in 1 year these people spend $9 million for what you call labor-saving machinery. That same year, they increased their payroll by 40,000 men and $88 million.
Funny how a guy with facts can break up an argument.
I suppose you think that's funny.
Oh, so you can't take it, huh?
Don't you think we'd better look up for folks? It must be nearly time for lunch.
Yes, I guess you're right. They'll probably be looking for us. Come on, Bill.
Okay. Nick, please be careful during lunch. Dad looks on things the same way Jim does, and he might take you seriously.
But I am serious.
I know, but promise me that you won't start an argument.
All right, if you say so. But I won't enjoy myself.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, with a great deal of pride and pleasure, I present to you Electro, the Westinghouse Moto Man. Electro, come here. And here he comes, ladies and gentlemen, walking up to greet you under his own power. Stop. You see, all I need to do is to speak into this phone, and Electro does exactly what I tell him to do. Sometimes. But I don't see why I'm telling Electro's story when he's perfectly able to tell his own. So let's listen and see what Electro has to say to us today. All right, Electro, will you tell your story, please?
Who? Me?
Yes, you.
Okay, Toots. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be very glad to tell my story. I am a smart fellow, as I have a very fine brain of 48 electrical relays. It works just like a telephone switchboard. If I get a wrong number, I can always blame the operator.
Thank you.
And by the way, I see a lot of good numbers out in our audience today.
Electro, behave yourself.
Quiet, please. I'm doing the talking.
I'm sorry.
That's the most remarkable thing I've ever seen.
Boy, what a guard that guy'd make on my football team.
Now, Electro, a moment ago you were bragging about being able to count on your fingers. Do you remember that? Well, we're going to find out about that. Now, do you remember how many children were born at the same time to a certain family up in Canada? Do you remember that? All right, let's see if you do. Count them on your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5? Well, that's absolutely correct.
Why, he's almost human.
If he wasn't so big, I'd take him for an engineer.
All right, now, Electro, I know you enjoy these, and I'm really going to try to give you a nice pleasure out of these. So here you are. You got that? Now, hold on to it. You may now smoke this cigarette. Go on. Oh, yes, Electro, you do need a light, too, don't you? All right, here you are.
Very interesting that in 1939, when they had a robot, what does Westinghouse have the robot do but to smoke a cigarette?
And folks, he's only 2 years old, too. Just learning.
How can he do all those things, Jim?
He's full of motors, gears, cams, and photoelectric cells. You could fill a book with all the electromechanical principles involved in the thing.
All he lacks is a heart and a brain.
If you ask me, I'd say he had nothing.
Well, then all he lacks is a heart.
He's not the only one.
I meant to show you this before. What do you think of it?
Oh, it's unique, all right. I don't think I've ever seen a ring like it.
It's really a collector's item, a rare specimen of barbaric jewelry. It's been in our family for about 300 years.
300 years?
Notice its color. Why, it's a study in polychromatic harmony.
It's beautiful. Really lovely. Oh, no, Nick, I couldn't take a ring like that. Why, it must be priceless.
Don't be silly. I want you to have it.
No, please, I couldn't think of it, really.
Wear it for a while. There's no harm in that. As a favor.
Oh, no.
Now you're being provincial, Babs.
Well, just for a week or so.
The spitting image or I'll eat your hat without salt.
We might be wrong. May I see the box of rings in the middle of the window?
Why, certainly. You can search the city, but you won't find a nicer piece of costume jewelry.
They can sing all right, Grandma.
That's a perfect copy of a ring in a Moscow museum.
Is it very expensive?
Well, I'll be very honest with you. It's worth more, but you can have that for $2. And at that price, I'm practically giving it away.
I'll have a half a dozen, if you please.
Good afternoon. Is Miss Barbara in?
Yes, sir, Mr. Macko. There's all here. Come right in, sir. Just lay your head on the table there, sir, and follow me. Mr. Mackerel.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Middleton. Hello, Bud. Mrs. Harrison. How are you, Mr. Middleton? Babs. Haven't you lost something? Young ladies shouldn't leave their valuables lying around. I found this on the hall table.
Quite a study in polychromatic harmony. Don't you think?
Why, the dirty crook told me there was only one of them.
Don't put it on that. Give him a chance.
Hey, let go of my arms.
Will you get up? Hey, come on now.
You gotta beat it, Nick. He's a wild man. When he gets going, I can't hold him much longer.
Land sakes alive, who all done busted what?
I think you scared him, Dad. He didn't even wait for a chow.
You want to be ashamed of yourself, Tom Middleton. What do you mean by carrying a gun?
A gun? Why, I don't even own a gun. It is that practical joking son of yours.
I'll have you know, Tom Middleton, he's just as much your son as mine.
Well, now that the guest of honor has departed, what are we going to do?
What are we gonna do? A whole table full of chow in front of us, and you ask what are we gonna do?
Oh, I mean afterwards.
But I know what Mother and I are going to do. We're going to take our shoes off and listen to the radio.
Can't you listen to it with them on?
We can sit around the house when we get old. Tonight, we're going to look for a silver lining. Just 46 years ago this month, I was doing the same thing, watching the lights of a World's Fair, the Columbian Exposition at Chicago.
That was the first American fair lighted by electricity.
Yeah. And Jim's company furnished most of the lighting for it.
We've come a long way since then.
Say, Jim, did you hear about the dame asking when the keepers feed the lagoon?
I can't help it, Babs. I've got to talk.
Please, Jim, not now. Just let me hold on to you. I wonder if the years ahead will be as bright as this.
We haven't seen anything yet, darling. Why, all this is merely a sample of the real world of tomorrow.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.
Because so many of our films have kitchens, I thought it would be interesting to include our next choice. It's called A Step-Saving Kitchen, and it's from 1949. It's 13 minutes. It's a film that was produced by the United States Agriculture Department. And this film is a supremely practical look at a kitchen that's been designed using studies on motion and efficiency so that all the things in the kitchen make working easier for the person in the kitchen. Of course, in this case, it's always women, and I believe this kitchen was really designed for farm women. But you'll find the contrast between this very practical kitchen that in fact became a reality, that many people did adopt kitchens like this, contrasting that to all the other impractical looks at future kitchens that we'll see in other films. This Agricultural Department film is from the National Archives. It's from their YouTube channel, and you can watch it and many other films if you go to the National Archives YouTube channel, and it's a beautiful restoration of another color film.
These plans were developed for people just like you. People who are interested in having the very latest ideas in design that will help them cut down on the time and the effort that must be spent in doing kitchen work. Since you folks have an old-fashioned kitchen, you know the amount of stooping and reaching that must be done, and the running from one corner of the kitchen to the other. During the last few years, our Bureau and the land-grant colleges have received hundreds of requests from farm homemakers asking for suggestions that would help them do their kitchen work faster and more easily. That's why we've developed this kitchen.
Well, just how did you go about developing the design for this U-kitchen?
We based our planning on established principles of work simplification to supply storage space and workspace for all the activities that take place there, arranged for maximum convenience and with good working heights and good light. Incidentally, we developed this U-arranged kitchen first, but the principles of planning we used, we can apply to other arrangements, such as the L and the corridor type. Laboratory research in our Bureau and in the state agricultural experiment stations has made evident many of the requirements of a good kitchen. For example, we have learned that more counter space is required for the making of cookies and bread than for any other mixing operation. Experiments have shown that we need at least 36 inches and that 42 inches is a more desirable length for the mixing counter. Different kitchen jobs have been studied to determine the most comfortable working height for each. To obtain different heights in our kitchen, we use pull-out boards. We designed revolving corner cupboards to make the greatest use of available space. These bring things out in the open, so they're easily seen and reached. Models for many features were made and experimented with. Some were used, some discarded. Good lighting is important in the kitchen. To obtain this, we developed a design for a homemade fixture, which would enable the farmer to use modern lighting at minimum cost. A shallow wooden trough in which we mounted 4 40-watt fluorescent tubes was hung 8 inches from the ceiling, above the work centers. And finally our kitchen began to take form. The units for each activity were put together to secure an orderly sequence of work. We planned this kitchen to take care of the preparation of food, eating, clearing, and some food preservation. As a convenient place for the telephone and for making out menus and market orders, we also included a planning center. The planning desk is actually a drop-leaf table on casters, which can become a tea cart or an extra work or dining table. By placing a large picture window across the end of the kitchen, we gained the benefit of natural light over all work surfaces. Since most women prefer to work from right to left, we placed the mixing center in the right leg of the U, between the refrigerator and the sink center. In the mixing center, as in all other work areas, we planned storage facilities to take care of all of the supplies and the equipment used in that center. These revolving corner shelves make it possible to store the heavy and frequently used foods near working level. They are roomy enough to hold all of the staple supplies used here. Just below counter level, shallow drawers give handy access to small equipment used in the mixing center. Even in the best of kitchens, one will have to stoop sometimes. Store here only things used occasionally, like picnic supplies, extra large baking utensils, and odds and ends. See how easy it is to get at what you want. We designed the smaller top shelf for long-handled pans to allow full use of the shelf space below. Space ordinarily wasted is utilized to advantage by these built-in bins for flour and sugar. Another advantage is that they eliminate canisters, which take up counter surface. Behind the door, a container holding 40 pounds of flour feeds into the smaller bin below. Top shelf space is used to good advantage by vertical files for baking pans. This does away with stacking and with stooping or excessive reaching. This mixing center, like the other centers in our kitchen, embodies all the principles of good planning. Thus it has plenty of work surface at comfortable heights, well lighted by natural and artificial lighting, with everything needed stored within easy reach. For sitting at work, this pull-out board at lap level, 26 inches above the floor, gives a good working height. It permits a woman to sit comfortably in an ordinary kitchen chair with a good backrest, her feet flat on the floor while she's working at long and tedious jobs. To supply additional work surface in food preservation, the table from the planning center can be easily rolled over and placed next to the pull-out board. To the left of the mixing counter is the vegetable preparation and dishwashing center. With knife rack and utensil cupboard at the right, vegetables in front of her, and sink at the left, this worker has a step-saving setup for preparing vegetables. A garbage hatch in the counter eliminates stooping and avoids repeated handling of garbage. The pail in the metal-lined compartment below can be removed for emptying from the outside through an insulated door in the wall. All bins and the compartments into which they fit are designed for easy cleaning. In the cooking and serving center are all of the supplies and equipment used at the range. Right above the range are bins built into the wall for foods such as cereals that go directly into boiling water, and also for seasonings that are used at the range. Notice how these doors fold back, safely out of the way. Serving dishes and range utensils are close at hand. The serving counter next to the range is convenient to the dish cupboards. Sliding doors back of this counter and cupboard give access from the dining room side. In the dishwashing center, dishes are scraped directly into the garbage hatch and stacked ready for washing. A double bowl sink provides for both washing and draining. The one on the right is shallow, about 5 inches deep, making for a comfortable height for dishwashing. The drainer hangs across the deeper bowl, with room at the side for emptying liquids. This bowl, because of its depth, 8 inches, is also satisfactory for washing large quantities of fruits and vegetables. Just back of the faucets is a cupboard for storing soaps and cleaning supplies. Extra supplies and a handy waste paper basket are kept under the sink. After they're scalded and dried, silver, glass, and dishes are stored in adjoining cupboards. Here's a handy rack for drying dish towels. Out of the way of meal preparation is this storage closet. Besides cleaning equipment, it has a rack for first aid supplies, convenient for emergencies. The upper section is reserved for a few jars of canned foods, saving trips to the food storage room. This serving counter, adjacent to the range, is convenient to both the dining room and the kitchen dining table. This attractive dining space has been planned to be compact, but not cramped. It gives ample room for a table that can be extended to seat 6 comfortably. A ledge under the large picture window is wide enough to hold the electrical equipment used at the table. Shelves below give convenient storage space. In this kitchen that has made her task of food preparation so much lighter, the housewife can share her family's enjoyment at mealtime.
So now we move from the very practical to the very impractical. Design for Dreaming from 1956 is a 10-minute, lush, vivid, and highly stylized General Motors film. It was part of Motorama, which was General Motors' annual traveling auto and appliance trade show, which in the year it was made kicked off at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City, where some of these scenes are filmed. The kitchen is not the entire thrust of this very strange, stylized film. It's the cars, the new cars, but I think you'll enjoy this if you're not too annoyed by it. This also comes from the Library of Congress.
I dreamt last night the moon was so bright it melted the walls away, and it wasn't alarming when I saw Prince Charming come into my bedroom and say,
let me persuade you to come to the place where tomorrow meets today.
Ooh, thank you. It sounds very exciting. May I come just as I am?
Hey, girls don't go to Motoramas dressed in a pair of pink pajamas.
Maybe they don't, but I don't care. Haven't got a single thing to wear.
Quick, please, a gown.
Ooh, I'll be the talk of the town. Oh, my.
Go after it, fly.
I followed my heart through the night past 1,000 windows, yellow with light. Down, down it fell, and it landed in the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. I'm a girl who happens to think that a brand new car is better than mink.
Excited?
Delighted! So glad I got invited.
Since it's just a dream and involves no money, which one would you like me to buy you, honey?
They're all so beautiful, I really don't know, so let me go down, get the lowdown, and look at each one much closer. I want a Corvette.
I thought you would.
Ooh, I want a Pontiac too.
Okay, we'll have the usual two-car garage. How do you feel about this fine Oldsmobile?
It's easy to see myself taking the wheel.
This Buick's a beaut.
I'll try it. Ooh, what a dreamy ride. I think that we ought to buy it.
Let's go all out and buy a Cadillac too.
I can hardly wait for this dream to come true.
Hey, lady, your apron is showing.
Better get her into the kitchen quick.
Just like a man, you give him a break. then you wind up in the kitchen baking a cake.
But this was a kitchen like none I'd seen. Put a card in the slot, and onto the screen pops a picture of just how your dish will look, plus all the ingredients you need to cook. No need for the bride to feel tragic. The rest is push-button magic. So whether you bake or broil or stew, the Frigidaire kitchen does it all for you. Don't have to be chained to the stove all day. Just set the timer and you're on your way.
Tick, tock, tick, tock. I'm free to have fun around the clock.
I'm exhausted.
The kitchen of tomorrow is calling me.
My cake is ready.
Time for the show. Everybody on stage. And now, a glamorous dancer in a special number, Dance of Tomorrow.
Everyone says the future is strange, but I have a feeling some things won't change.
A magnificent Eldorado town car by Cadillac.
Ensemble by Christian Dior of Paris.
Buick presents the sleek Centurion.
Driving Coat by Montesano of New York.
Oldsmobile's elegant Golden Rocket.
Sports Outfit by Pat Primo of Los Angeles.
Pontiac's Club de Mer, open to the sky.
Costume by Emilio of Capri.
Chevrolet's Impala, graceful and swift.
Silk Casual by Digby Morton of London.
And last of all, designed for the electronic highway of the future, the fabulous turbine-powered Firebird 2.
It's you!
Firebird 2 to Control Tower. We are about to take off on the highway of tomorrow. Stand by.
Tomorrow, our dreams will come true.
has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.
Because we have so many unrealistic, whitewashed looks at the future in the selections tonight, and that's not because I'm biased in favor of whitewashed, unrealistic looks at the future. It's because there are not very many practical films looking to the future, and there are almost none that include minorities. So I thought that we might have a dose of reality with the next film that is somewhat about the future, but not as much as these other films. It's called The Baltimore Plan. It's from 1953. I've chosen 16 minutes of it, and it was sponsored by the Baltimore Redevelopment Commission. And this really is serving as a counterpoint to the other films you'll see tonight, the materialistic dream films. While they were being made, this film focused on solving the problem of urban blight in Baltimore. And they were looking to the future, to the possibility of cleaning up all the blight in Baltimore, which, if you've been to Baltimore lately, you'll see that the predictions of this film were not necessarily borne out. This is also from the Library of Congress and is a beautiful restoration of a very interesting and unusual, unique film for 1953.
Here is the shame of our American cities. Here is the face of our cities we hide. Endless blocks of houses scarred beyond belief, overcrowded fire traps, tenements, shacks, human dwellings unfit for human beings to live in. In Baltimore, as in all large cities, such conditions went untouched for years. Then a new approach. A young social worker just out of school went into a blighted area to report on the work of social agencies. She was shocked by the housing conditions she saw. Her report, an indictment of Baltimore's indifference, interested three people: the Director of Public Welfare, the Commissioner of Health, and a newspaper editor. The newspaper hit hard. To the people of Baltimore, such conditions were impossible, but there they were, as common as the daily paper. The paper kept hammering away week after week, month after month, and gradually the impact mounted. Aroused by the hard-hitting news stories, groups of citizens organized the Citizens Planning and Housing Association and met with city officials. There were more months of delays, but eventually the determined action of organized citizens brought results. A new housing ordinance was drafted. It was a housing ordinance with this difference. It outlined minimum standards for health and decency. The next step, the formation of a division of housing in the city health department. Its job, not to wait for complaints, but to go out and investigate. Its authority, to notify owners and landlords of violations and take legal action where necessary. But investigating, uncovering violations was just part of the new approach. The facts had to be brought to public attention time and again. The facts of the hidden costs of slums.
A fire casualty.
Here was the direct appeal to the conscience of influential Baltimore, its businessmen, its lawyers, its clergymen.
A rat bite case. Lack of fundamental sanitation. A Baltimore playground.
The campaign of community education went on. Young people were given first-hand knowledge of the problems and of a newly drawn plan to concentrate housing law enforcement in one block in the vast blighted area of 2,000 blocks, a test block. For the first time, an American city had selected a specific area to inspect instead of waiting for complaints to come in from tenants. It was a thoroughgoing investigation of all fire, building, and health violations in block number 1. The next step, the courts.
This case came before another court last month?
Yes, Your Honor, and it was postponed 2 times before that by 2 other judges.
Well, I'm not going to postpone it. I've just disposed of a case of murder. I have 2 other crimes of violence on my docket, 6 cases of armed robbery, 1 of assault with intent to kill. You say this landlord is guilty of violating the housing code. Well, I'm just too busy with cases involving robbery and violence to bother with a case involving a leaky rain spout. Case dismissed. There'll be a 5-minute recess.
I'll be seeing you.
Violations were uncovered by the thousands. Violators brought into the magistrates' courts by the hundreds. Results? Weeks and months of postponements and delays, cases shunted from court to court, civic indifference. Results in block number 1, disappointment and resignation on the part of tenants forced to live in and pay rent for slum dwellings. The continuation of blight with its attendant hidden costs of human misery and deprivation. The housing law enforcement program, for which so many had had such high hopes, seemed unworkable. But then something happened. Once again, the determined action of organized citizens brought results.
Mr. Helen, I've gone over the facts involved in your case very, very carefully. I find that you make your living from being in the real estate business. But when you rent a house, you contract not only between yourself and your tenant, but also with the community. This is the 3rd time that you've been before this court. You've had ample time. I think that the city has been more than fair in this case. The houses you rent, houses which you do not keep in decent, livable condition, are a menace not only to your tenants, but to the city of Baltimore. Mr. Hallen, I therefore find you guilty, and the fine is $50 and costs. Next case.
I'll be seeing you.
A housing court, the first of its kind in the country. A special magistrates court to handle all housing cases and only housing cases. Here were the basic ideas of the Baltimore plan at last. Make minimum housing standards a legal requirement, and then enforce the laws. The Baltimore plan was on its way.
Yes, but now the Baltimore plan was to be tested, not just with single blocks, but with a neighborhood of 27 blocks. This was to be the big test. Education, social services, law enforcement, citizen groups, all resources of the community working with the people living in a blighted neighborhood. If I could find a neighborhood leader.
No, I don't wanna.
Was this woman the leader I was looking for? No, she was not. I was about ready to give up. I'd never find her. But just then...
Come here, mother, mother!
Bobby's stuck in this old pipe. What'll we do, Mrs. Turner?
Bobby was more frightened than hurt. Mrs. Turner, the woman I talked to, knew right away what to do. She sent the men of the neighborhood for tools to work with. And then she asked me to help. Would I go for a policeman? I surely would. But before I could get 2 steps away, she asked me to bring back something else. It was just what was needed for the occasion.
Okay.
The men of the neighborhood soon got busy. And before long, there was much excitement among the children of the neighborhood.
Oh, Mrs. Turner, look.
Ice cream cone. An ice cream cone. Just what Mrs. Turner had ordered. And it really turned a trick. Almost before you could say Jack Robinson, Bobby's leg was free. Here was the cooperative spirit we needed for our program. Here was natural kindliness and neighborliness. And here at last, in Mrs. Turner, I'd found the neighborhood leader we needed. From that point on, Mrs. Turner and I had a long talk. I told her that Mayor D'Alessandro had formed a Citizens Advisory Council to assist the program. The Baltimore plan was now moving into high gear. We'd brought in the facilities of the United States Public Health Service to measure housing conditions in the pilot area before the program and after. Out of 2,000 blocks of blight, 27 blocks. This was the target, the goal, a systematic tabulation of the before conditions in the pilot area. House by house, the inspectors worked carefully, painstakingly, feeding their reports back to the Housing Bureau.
Defective wiring, fire hazards,
structural weaknesses, falling ceiling, rat-infested basement,
outside
structural
toilet,
weakness,
overcrowding,
falling ceiling,
garbage,
rat-infested basement,
outside toilet,
structural weakness,
defective
falling
wiring,
ceiling,
fire
rat-infested
outside
basement,
fire hazard,
structural weakness,
defective
falling
wiring,
ceiling,
outside plumbing,
rat-infested basement,
defective wiring,
structural weakness,
fire
falling ceiling,
outside.
The U.S. Public Health Service survey was completed. We know now what has to be done, Mrs. Turner. And that's where you come in. People like you and respect you. Will you take the job of volunteer neighborhood chairman? Mrs. Turner looked out across the backyards and said,
I'll be happy to. And so my work began. And as I found out, it was a day and night job. There were committee meetings, home visits, conferences. Most of our committees met at Pilot House. A church group had converted to a community center the worst slum house in the neighborhood. It served us both as an example of rehabilitation and as a social service referral center. With the help of Pilot House and the Housing Bureau, my two chief assistants found block captains, men and women who were willing to work, and work hard in their own blocks. We met to plan our part in a citywide effort to interest and involve all the people in the pilot program. City officials, schools, newspapers, social agencies, individuals, everyone planned for the Blitz block. This was enough drama to involve even the most indifferent. It was a wholesale attack on one block, with the block captain, the mayor, and the heads of the city departments officiating. It was good to know that the city officials meant business. It was good to know, too, what could be done. And soon, throughout the 27 blocks, the walls came a-tumbling down. And then after the tearing down, the rebuilding, the repairing. Our hard work began to pay off. Soon, the houses and yards of the pilot area took on a different look. But there were problems. Some owner-occupants simply could not afford repair costs. Solution. I urged them to go before the hearing board, which might recommend assistance from the Fight Blight Fund, a fund contributed by trade organizations and businessmen. Assistance rendered. Long-term loans without interest if necessary, with repayments based on ability to repay. The Fight Blight Fund helped many owner-occupants in this way, but there were other problems. In my duties as neighborhood chairman, I worked with all kinds of people, many who hindered, many more who helped. I had my share of surprises and disappointments. I met with indifference at times, with refusal to cooperate on the part of landlords, and I met with indifference, refusal to cooperate on the part of tenants. But for such cases,
Whether landlord, tenant, or owner-occupant, I knew that I had an ally. For situations too difficult for me or my block captains to handle, the Housing Bureau could turn to the hard-hitting machinery of the Housing Court.
Mr. Clark, your landlord has made a lot of improvements on his property. But tenants have duties and responsibilities, and you haven't lived up to yours. I find you guilty, but I'm going to make the fine very, very light. Just $2 and costs, provided you get that yard of yours cleaned up. And to help you do it, here are two of your neighbors. Mrs. Turner got to volunteer. You're a lucky man. Next case.
Case of Thomas Gary.
Well, Mr. Gary, welcome back for the third time.
Your Honor, I stand on my rights as an American citizen.
Mr. Gary, I find nothing in the Constitution of the United States which says a landlord may keep his property in a disgraceful condition. Mr. Gary, I could fine you $50 a day for every day these violations are not corrected. Is that what you want me to do?
No, Your Honor.
Well, that's what I'm going to do. You're guilty of 10 days violations. The fine is $500 and costs. However, this court isn't interested in taking money away from either tenants or landlords. I suspend the fine if you'll put that $500 into fixing up your houses. Agreed?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
And at this point, even Mr. Gary had to admit that punishment in Baltimore's housing court did in fact fit the crime. I was a bit surprised at his rather sudden character reformation, but there's no question about it. Mr. Gary is a changed man. Children playing in sunlit open spaces. This, to me, is a fitting symbol of our work. They played before, of course, but in alleys like this. And now they had something better. In fact, throughout the neighborhood, things had taken on a new look. In place of this. Blighted backyards had become flower gardens. Rat-infested alleys before and after. Cluttered backyards before and after. A neighborhood like this can become this. This, then, is the Baltimore plan. It cannot work miracles. There are slum areas beyond recovery. But for those areas worth rehabilitating, the Baltimore plan can work. And together with a program of redevelopment and new housing, both public and private, it can remake a city.
Oh, by the way, I cut out about 5 minutes of the Baltimore plan. It's a 20-minute film, and certainly I would encourage you to watch the entire thing. Just type in the Baltimore Plan 1953 Library of Congress in Google, and it'll pop up right away. And you can even download it if you wish to do something with it. Next, just a very short newsreel from the 1964 New York World's Fair about an attraction there called Adamsville, USA. This is from the National Archives.
It can be estimated that half of the admissions to the New York World's Fair will be children, so why not an exhibit for children alone? It's Adamsville, USA, with a 5-foot entrance that no adult may pass. Here the kids and the kids alone can take active part in working atomic devices. These mechanical hands, for example. It's soft cell education as they have the kids solving puzzles. Then they can go prospecting for uranium. Find the hidden buttons and you can spot the deposits. This scale shows weight in both pounds and atoms. My goodness, I must watch my diet. Either that, young lady, or exercise. This bike proves you'd have to pedal for 30 years to create the energy locked in a pound of uranium. Meanwhile, parents can look on enviously while the kids have a ball. Speaking of kids, the fair, of course, has the problem of lost parents, but they've set up an efficient lost and found area to cope with the situation. 50 children a day are brought to the shelters until their elders can be found. Once they've been checked in, the strayed ones are put to work amusing themselves. There's been a run on crayons and drawing paper. When wayward parents show up, everyone's happy and ready for some more sightseeing. Of 2,000 lost children since the fair opening, none has had to be sheltered overnight. But fair officials offer a better solution. Hold on to your parent tight.
So we're going to go back to our very unrealistic, sort of materialistic looks at American culture and history. From 1958, a very colorful and well-produced film called The American Look. It's a 28-minute film. I've picked 11 minutes of it, but I would encourage you, if you like the way this film looks and sounds, to watch the entire thing. It's a General Motors film, and it's a representative of what the Prelinger Archives has called the Populux era. It's a celebration of designers. It debuted at the 1958 American Society of Industrial Designers trade show. And it was apparently a very popular film that was very unpopular with the designers. They felt that, according to Rick Prelinger, they felt that it didn't show how designing was really done, and they kept using the term stylist, 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 which apparently designers do not like, because style removes the design from practicality. But here is, in widescreen color, The American Look from 1958.
I'm tired just from what that announcer said. Did you hear?
In appreciation of the stylists of America, who work in lines, forms, and textures and colors to give to us beauty, charm, and elegance in the conveniences, comforts, and necessities of our daily living. As a tribute to men and women who design. By the way things look, as well as the way they perform, our homes acquire new grace, new glamour, new accommodations, expressing not only the American love of beauty, but also the basic freedom of the American people, which is the freedom of individual choice. form, proportion, rhythm, and variety, the stylists leave their unmistakable marks on everyday conveniences in flowing lines and graceful shapes, which we as Americans may enjoy. Women and men alike are increasingly interested in the look of things. They eagerly give their attention to what's new and beautiful and advanced. Modern packaging does more than wrap and hold and conceal. Stunning in color, ingenious in design. It brings festivity to the marketplace, tempting, hinting, and revealing. Those who dream and design are always contributing to our ways of work. Working situations benefit from a new kind of layout, bright, open, and inviting. The modern designer creates beauty through simplicity, bringing to active business a look of casualness, a look of luxury, combining to create a new look to American efficiency. The designer's influence is reflected in our work, adding new style and new appeal to the variety of outdoor equipment that serves us in so many ways. Engineering the shape and look of machines that change the shape and look of the land itself. There's a fresh look to fun in America today. Stylists have added new zest to recreation by bringing an exciting look to the large variety of things which make leisure hours more pleasurable. The family at home is enjoying the convenience and the functional beauty of walls of glass, merging room with room, blending inside with outside. Indoors or outdoors, wherever we go or wherever we stay, now and in the future, we can all depend on the stylist to beautify everything we need. From the eye appeal and swift effectiveness of the smallest utensils in the kitchen of the future, to the serene grandeur of our glistening structures, the hand of the stylist is ever designing changes to improve our life of the future. Thanks to the American stylist. Yes, thanks to the men and women who design.
Our final film in this 2-hour program is Out of This World from 1961. It's very much about kitchens. It's 12 minutes. It's a General Motors film and their Frigidaire division. This film is, I have to say, obscenely materialistic in its look at the future. And you'll obviously notice that one of the things they do is some nauseating cultural appropriation. There's one actress who sort of carries the film through from beginning to end, but she becomes Indian, she becomes Chinese, she becomes Italian, South American, using wigs and costumes and changing her behavior in a way that would not be done today in advertising.
Welcome to the world of tomorrow. Climb aboard. You are about to take a journey out of this world into the world of the future. Forget the world around you. Forget the people around you. You are entering Futurama, alone with your own thoughts. Have you ever wondered where we will find the food, clothing, and shelter we will need to sustain the world's exploding population in the years ahead? In the timeless distances of outer space, perhaps? The technology of today is already helping us penetrate the silent darkness of space. Man himself has taken the first tiny step into this vast unknown, And we can only imagine what resources will soon be brought back to Earth by these early pioneers. But what about our own Earth? Are there not still resources here to meet the needs of the world tomorrow? What about that great unexplored continent at the bottom of our Earth, larger than the United States and Europe combined? Already Antarctica has become a great scientific laboratory for men of all nations to discover great new land areas rich with natural resources. Antarctica is but one area of great promise for the future. What about the others? What about the sea? We have long sailed its surface and fished its depths. But at the very bottom is a land of undreamed of abundance, with enough food to feed the Earth's population 7 times over. There are rich ores and minerals carried by submarine trains to process stations on the coast. There is the water itself, to be drained from the sea and made fresh as rain, to turn desert lands into fertile lands. There will even be new areas for living and working, a whole new dimension of life for people of the future. Now, consider the thick, lush lands of the equator. Here, nature flourishes in its greatest abundance. Technology has finally led the way into the wild profusion of the jungle world. One day, this land will be transformed into land for farms and pastures for cattle.
Yes, it's true. This film is suggesting that we'll all be happier in the future when we cut down the Amazon rainforest and turn it into farmland.
From the abundance of equatorial jungles to the barrenness of great mountain ranges, the future offers great promise. Once barriers to man's progress, the mountains will soon be traversed by multiple highways that will soar over canyons and cut through towering walls of granite. They will carry a life stream of minerals and other natural resources to the thriving industries of tomorrow. Highways, too, will open up the great expanses of desert lands, one day to be made fertile again by waters pumped from sea and river, from dam and mountain stream. The highways from great new centers of agriculture and industry will lead inevitably to the metropolis of tomorrow. Access will be easy to the heart of the city, the core. In and around great cities like this will live many of the people of the future, a future of limitless hope and promise. And nowhere will this be more evident to the homemaker than in the kitchen of the future. Remember the ultra-modern home exhibit you visited earlier today? The wonderful new concepts you saw in the kitchen?
Yes, I couldn't believe it.
That's certainly understandable. It's hard to believe there actually is an oven that can cook a roast in minutes by electronics, then bake you potatoes in less time than it takes to carve the roast. And remember that new idea for the family that enjoys casual living. A refrigerated cart, ready for wheeling into a game room or out onto the patio. Perfect for keeping foods and drinks cool for informal entertaining.
Yes, that's a wonderful idea.
Now let's continue our journey into imaginative design and new concepts from the far corners of the world.
Oh, just had to pause it a minute. Am I the only one who thinks that wig either makes her look like a psychopath or incredibly pathetic?
Why, it's just like being on the Mediterranean. Good heavens, I really am. How wonderful. Yummy.
beautiful. And all that room for fresh foods, too. My goodness, how can so much frozen food fit into such a small space? And no frost, either. Just look at how much this dishwasher holds. Well, I must say, I certainly am getting around. Now I seem to be in the exotic East. I can sure use a good cup of tea about now. My, what a beautiful kitchen. Look what's over here, a laundry center. How convenient. And I'll bet this washer will get anything clean, even my most delicate things. How simple these controls are. It happened again. And now I'm in the Orient. Well, look at that. A second oven. How wonderful. Just pull it out for easy cleaning.
Just had to pause it again. The way she's walking and imitating a Chinese person. Who came up with this idea? Who did this? They put this at the 1964 World's Fair. It's so embarrassing.
Ah, there's something I like. Lots of refrigerator space and frost-proof, too. My, but something smells good over here. Ah, I'll have to sample that. Ooh, that's hot.
Hey, Mom! Mom?
What a day. My family will never believe me.
Hey, Mom, is dinner ready?
Coming right up. How does it look?
Delicious. Hi, Dad.
Hi. Looks good. Well, I'll start the car, and you can tell us about going back to the World's Fair today.
Did you have fun?
I sure did. Everything I saw was out of this world.
Thank you for joining us in the future to watch these films from the past about the future. It has been my pleasure to make these selections for you, and there are other Vintage Movie Night programs available online, and I'll certainly be doing more of them in the future. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll leave you with our theme song.
Vintage Movie Night, we're gonna watch some old films. Vintage Movie Night, we're gonna watch some old films. Vintage movies, vintage movies. Vintage Movie Night, we're gonna watch some